started. And I'm here to share something of my experience around Taoism and the Enneagram with you today. And maybe a place to start is just to say that Taoism kind of found me. I never really looked for it. It kind of called to me from really quite a young age. And my dad was a medical doctor, a GP, who practiced homeopathy and acupuncture back in the 60s. So he was really ahead of his time. And we lived not so far from Heathrow Airport, about an hour away. And we had a big house, big garden, big family, and people would come, visitors would come. And he would have all sorts of interesting people kind of came through our family space. And I have a moment which still makes me tear up when I remember my sister and I had a room at the top of the house looking out over the back garden. And we were lucky enough to have a big garden with a big flat lawn. And I looked out and I saw this woman dressed in a really long navy blue sort of dress, all one color, a full length dress with long sleeves. And she was doing these strange movements like in a dance. And I'm going to remember this moment till I die. It just touched me. And it was a long time later that I found out she was practicing Tai Chi on the back lawn. And that was just one of the examples. And a patient gave my dad two teddy bears that sat on the fireplace in his consulting room. And the teddy bears had labels around their necks. One said yin and one said yang. I had no idea at the time what this was all about, but here they were, these two bears. And there were figures on his desk that showed the human figure with the meridians of the acupuncture system. So these were the sort of early stirrings of an interest in Taoism. And I went on to study Qigong and Tai Chi. I always got on with that much better than with yoga because it felt like it was more of a moving practice. And I'm a body type on the Enneagram, and I think there's something about moving in meditation that really has always worked for me. Um, so I studied I was interested in feng shui. I also discovered as a kind of bolt from the blue, just landed on my desk at work one day a whole newsletter about feng shui. And I discovered how it linked to Daoism and how it was an extraordinary practice. I got interested in sacred space and clearing space and different ways of working, really with the energy of spaces. And for me, this is often a missing link in our coaching and our consulting work. We think it's all about the people and then character, and then we become more and more aware that it's about systems and systemic interactions. And of course, one big part of that is environment and how the layout of an office, the location, its place in a landscape, all these things. So we're all getting much more, I think, aware of how we're attuned in multiple ways and multiple layers to our surroundings. And really, that's a good place to start saying, well, so what is Taoism? So I said we would explore in this session how the Enneagram and Daoism's 9-point systems relate to one another. So I discovered Daoism before I discovered the Enneagram, and there was a period of my life when I was studying both quite intensely, and I almost had to keep them separate because they're always and still are seen very much as separate things, which is kind of weird when you think about it. That this major philosophy that's come from the East. And actually, some of the great Taoist works, they predate the kind of ancient Egyptian work. I've got a slide on that in a minute. So how they relate to each other. And then what becomes possible when we bring more flow, fluidity, and systemic awareness to our Enneagram practice. And I hope some simple steps of how we can work with these ideas. So if you're new to Taoism, please don't attempt to sort of with your mind and your brain to take it all on kind of cognitively. I think just my invitation, I think, is to kind of be with it and see what lands with you as we go through. And this thing about wondering about next steps in meeting the Enneagram symbol that might arise from this. And I love the interactivity that's there in this watercolor of what it's like when we stand around a symbol and engage with it. I'm sure many of you will have had the chance to do that. Um, it's very timely. I mean, the universe offers us these things to do this session at this particular moment. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, really. The Chinese New Year began in mid-month, about 17th of February, with the new moon and reaches conclusion on the 3rd of March with the full moon. And I think that's a beautiful demonstration of Daoism that's unlike our Western idea that the old year ends on the 31st of December and the new year magically starts on the 1st of January. In the Daoist approach, you have a whole fortnight to kind of ease into the new year. How brilliant is that? And 2026, the year of the fire horse. So I'm going to come back to that and say a little bit more about that. But there's some very, very intense astrology going on at the moment around a Saturn Neptune conjunction. And I think we're seeing some world events that are reflecting that. So that's kind of in the background and all part of this, really. So, what does it mean then? A Taoist orientation to the Enneagram. The yin yang symbol is here. I'm going to say something about that. So I just wanted to share with you where I live because I'm talking about spaces and places. So I live in a hilltop historic town called Shaftesbury, and this is just round the corner from me, and it's very famous, probably one of the most stunning views in the whole of southwest England. You're all in South Africa. I've visited a couple of times. It's a different landscape, but this kind of sense of place and history and being in a special place. And this is when I'm at my partner's place. We walk we have this view to Glastonbury Tor. And Glastonbury is one of the most famous kind of spiritual places. So when I'm there, this is me walking my dog in the field of beautiful, beautiful spring flowers, cowslips. They used to be everywhere. And now it's very rare to see a field of cowslips like this. And this is a beautiful spiral that's also on the land and the view across to the Tor. So this sort of being present to place in the morning, walking the dog, it seems to me this is all, they're these simple things that can bring us back into flow when life may be taking us away from it. A little bit about Daoism then. So at the heart of Daoism is the Tao. And you can read endlessly and explore what is the Tao. We might actually say it's consciousness. It's the primordial potential. It's what predates creation. It's unknowable, eternal, unmeasurable. You read these sort of frustrating words. It's like it's the course of life. It's the flow of all. And these very famous words, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. So you can't name this thing, but it is the flow of life. And you'll see in all the world's great religions, when they talk about spirit and they talk about primal spirit, they have words similar to this, that this is something that when you try and name it and label it, it becomes something else. But it's about the flow of life and it's about chi and the breath of life that's in all things. So and there's a very strong law of three present in Taoism. So in this yin yang symbol, we see some extraordinary truths about life and matter, that everything exists in relativity. You've only got the dark visible because the light is there, and the light is only there because the dark is there. And in the fullest expression of the light, there is the seed of the dark. And in the fullest expression of dark, there is a seed of light. And these are forces that keep transmuting. So one constantly evolves into and becomes the other. So everything is moving and changing all the time. I think this is one of Taoism's great gifts. It's about movement, it's about flow, it's about transmutation. And we have in Taoism the same idea we see in the Egyptian mythology and perennial wisdom. And it's here too the idea that you need a third force, a transforming or reconciling energy. So there's our core triangle that's the heart of the Enneagram, the 369. And Yes. So it's movement, and then there's so many examples in Taoism of the law of three. If you start to read the material about, so Taoism is the foundation of Chinese medicine, Chinese philosophy, Chinese culture, architecture. It absolutely pervades the whole of Chinese society and places in the East as well. These will be familiar concepts to many of you: qi or chi, or the life, the breath of life. Um, So it flows between yin and yang. And it's again that idea of life force, the breath of life, the chi that flows through all things, flows through our body, but all matter is energy. So chi is in all things, and sometimes really vibrant tree, and sometimes dull chi. And if you buy greens in the farmers market and they picked it that morning, there's a kind of chi energy in that those vegetables, which is so different from maybe the equivalent piece of broccoli when you see it in the supermarket, and you say, "Wow, the chi is just, it's so different." And chi is very important in Chinese medicine and practice. So it's kind of what's the quality of my chi at any given time, so we can work with and nurture our chi and our life energy. And you were quoting Ingrid earlier about, the Enneagram as points, as giving us ways in which we uh, engage with our life force. And this was exactly what Helen Palmer also taught, that when the passion of the Enneagram type kicks in, it's a contraction against our life energy. Equally, I really want to kind of put the balancing side to that, that a full expression of our life energy, the grace of our essential quality, is absolutely there for us to work with and discover and allow and invite in. Something about key. Anybody want to comment on that before I go on? I can't see the screen because I can mostly see the presentation, Ingrid, but if you see anybody waving, will you let me know?
I will do that.
Yeah. Are we okay so far? All good?
Yeah, let's carry on.
Okay. So Wu Wei is another really important concept in Taoism that sometimes people lose sight of. And it's the concept of absolute, still, empty presence. And it's kind of this crucible of potential that comes in stillness. And the words, the Wu Wei is, the Wu is like the yin and the Wei is like the yang. And Wu Wei is this blend of both, which is the holding space, the stillness where all potential can arise. And there are plenty of Daoist texts and poems around, it's the space inside the form, which is where the potential lies. Now, what about the Enneagram? If the space inside the form and inside the lines or between the lines is where the potential lies, that's kind of mind blowing, isn't it? Where might that take us? Come back to that idea as well. Also, fundamental to the Daoist system is the five elements or five transformations. So, water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. Again, your traditional acupuncturists work with this. This is how the yin and yang become matter and infuse the universe, expressed through these five transformations of five elements. And they work in a feeding creative cycle, which is shown around the edge of my circle here. Water feeds the plants, the wood feeds the fire creates ashes and becomes earth. It's earth where you create and form metal, and on the surface of metal, water arises, and so metal births water. And there's also in the center what's known as a holding cycle. Um, Water quenches fire, fire burns through metal, metal chops wood, wood in its roots constrains the earth, draws energy from the earth, and earth feeds water. And in a Taoist system, we're always looking for a healthy balance between the five elements and an awareness that, again, they're moving and changing all the time. So that's infused in the system. Um, so what about this system of nine then? So there's an ancient story that the sage Lao Tzu, there he is, saw a turtle emerging from a river. And on the back of the turtle was a pattern, which is shown here. And it's those dots are falling nine numbers, one to nine. And this is was thought to be the divine imagery that led to his writing. So there are two great Daoist texts which you'll probably have heard of or may well have worked with. There's the Tao Te Ching and there's the I Ching. And when you hear of people reading the I Ching, so there are these two great books. There are many, many kind of treatises of works and analysis about them. And they all work with the five elements and these nine qualities. So this is just where I wanted to kind of bring this in, nine essential qualities. Just a little bit on the timeline then. I did this for when I was giving this presentation at the Egyptian conference a couple of years ago, because we'd visited some of the museums in Cairo and seen some of the Valley of the Kings exhibition and so on. So this is third century we're talking about this work, the work of the Yellow Emperor and the legendary emperor and sage. So these were the author, or possibly the authors. A bit like Shakespeare, people question sometimes how many of the works were his or whether they were other people who contributed. And this formation of the Bagua is absolutely at the heart of Taoism. And what you have is the yin yang symbol translated into eight symbols. Each made, they're called trigrams. So again, the law of three, here they are in the trigrams. And these trigrams are made up of a yang line, which is a full straight line, and a yin line, which is a broken line. So the yang is the solid line is yang, the broken line is yin. So you could take the Tai Chi symbol at the top, the yang and the yin lines underneath, and then if you put them in every possible combination with three lines, you have these eight, they're called trigrams, a bit like the Enneagram, a figure of three. So here you have eight trigrams, and at the very center, the yin yang symbol. And this gives us the nine. And these are the nine essential qualities that this Bagua is thought to be the fundamental account of matter becoming energy, or energy becoming matter, consciousness becoming manifest, an expression of how life is and how life flows. So again, I would say, like the Enneagram, it's coming in at that interface between consciousness and the forming of life and the forming of experience, and bringing to being the nature of what is. And there's mathematical symbolism in these, just like in the Enneagram. The kind of divine mathematics of all of this is very interesting. So this symbol, if you've printed it out, you might find this easier to see. This is a simplified version of what I showed you on the previous page. So all these trigrams are numbered 1 to 9, with 5 being the center one. So this is a much more simplified version, and it's known as the magic square because every which way you look at it, it adds up to 15. I mean, how cool is that? So you can take the lines across, up, down, diagonally, and you get 15. And this is the flow that's offered to us by the magic square and of the Bagua. And something is quite fun to do. I don't know if anybody was able to print it out and you can actually use your pencil on a piece of paper and kind of draw it. But if you take your pencil starting at 1 and draw, or just maybe feel it now, we're moving from 1 water. Now you see here the 5 elements are also embedded in this symbol. So we have water. This is the same as I just showed you. Water feeds earth, water feeds wood, fire, earth, and metal is infused through this diagram. And you get this flow. So it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, diagonally through 7, 8, 9, and back to 1. This is the flow that's represented. And this is a movement that's happening. So the qualities of each of these 9 points, which are represented in these trigrams and these elements that are here, they are infusing all that is. You can lay this symbol over a room, for example, and you would enter at the point of water. That's the entry point. And I sometimes think, I mean, if you think about walking into a concert hall or a theatre, you walk in the back door at 1, and you might choose to sit at the back, left or right at the back, where we have metal and earth. You've got the center of the area where the audience are. And then the stage is right at the front in the middle. And if you're presenting, that's usually where you'll go and present. So we have 9 fire. Fire is the element of being seen and full expression. So the stage is at 9. So that is, if you get into feng shui, that is how you apply the bagua. And you can apply one as by the direction of north, but also in intuitive feng shui, you can apply it by the entrance way. There's lots and lots of big ideas here, but there's something I wanted just to share with you about the flow here, that there's this flow in the space. Any questions about that before I move on? Just throwing so much information at you really fast here.
Anyone got questions? I'm personally really struggling to see the logic of the arrangement of these numbers.
Yeah, yeah. So if you look at the Bagua here, the numbers are related to these 8 trigrams. And there are 2 different layouts. There's an early sequence and a later sequence, and a bit like the idea of the Enneagram drawn with 3 completely symmetrical triangles. The early format, everything it was very balanced, and this is a slightly less balanced version, which was thought to be more reflective of life. So I can't tell you why it's like this. I can only tell you that it is like this in what we see here in the Bagua.
Thanks.
And you get a very interesting symbol if you draw the connecting line from 1 to 2. That's also something that's interesting to play with. And it's that each one evolves into the next. So water evolves into earth, evolves into wood, goes through the central earth, evolves into metal, and eventually to earth again and to fire. And so it's a kind of constant movement and change through these elements. Something I did want to say, and I wouldn't normally cover this in when I do this little introduction to Daoism, but it's because of the timing that in Daoist astrology, there's a constant movement of these 9 places. So this is what's called the universal chart on the left that we were just looking at. But every year, the numbers cycle through the chart. So when we moved from 2025 in January, last year was an Earth year in the Daoist system. And interestingly, we're moving into a water year where 1 is at the center. And so if you look at 2025, 2's in the middle, and in 2026, 1 is in the middle, and every number has moved around 1. They've all moved on. This is takes a while to get your head around, so don't attempt to do it now. It's only to say there is a movement each year on year through all these 9 qualities. And there's also the same thing going on month by month and week by week if you get really into the detail of it. So there's a flow. But I particularly wanted to share this because we're hearing quite a lot about the fact that we're moving into a fire horse year. And the animal system and the elements that go with them also cycle through the five elements on a sequence of 12, because there are 12 animals. And that overlays this nine, and they both exist and they both colour the quality of the year. So when you hear a lot about, if you are, about the fact it's going to be a fiery year and it's a fire horse year, not many people are as aware that it's also got water in there, which quenches fire. So maybe that means it's not going to be quite as stormy as some of the people writing on the internet are suggesting. So where does this leave us? Um, I'd like to come back to the power of symbols. So I've given you a flavour of how the Taoist Bagua is an underpinning symbol, which shows how life is, how energy moves, how the experience of life moves and changes. And so I've said here a symbol is the basis for exploration of what is, and we've already seen in those Taoist images and the way they're expressed in the figures that are painted figures. The name of the painted figures is escaping me temporarily, but there's a particular word for them when they're drawn like that. They're kind of symbols in themselves, and so the symbols as keys to underlining energy that give us a sense of what flows, how it flows, where it flows, tells us about the nature of things. And it's interesting, I think, that this recurring and repeating numerical patterns are there in the Bagua and there, as we know, in the Enneagram, that they are infinite numbers, the law of seven, the 142857. And it's a kind of mathematical truth about patterns of existence. And you maybe have studied this already in other Enneagram presentations. So something about there's a profound truth here at its simplest. And as I said, it's all about change and movement. So what happens when we start to bring in this understanding of symbol as being about mystery? There's another slide here about every culture having powerful symbols and that they make visible something which is otherwise not known to us. It's a way of maybe a portal, a way into experiencing things differently. Um, I am aware of talking a lot. So, what I'd love us to do now is say, well, okay, if we think that Taoism is giving us a sense of life as flow and symbols giving us a clue to how that all works, there's a wonderful exercise you can do where we take or we draw our own Enneagram symbol. Um, I don't know if any of you had a chance to print it just now. Anybody have an opportunity to do that? Yeah. So if you did, great. And if you didn't, please, if you can grab a piece of paper and a pen and have a go at drawing your own Enneagram symbol. If you did the printout, I've made it easy for you because you've got a pale one there that you might like to draw on. A few minutes to either just do a little personal practice of engaging with the Enneagram symbol in an immediate way. And one of the ways to work with this is to start with your own Enneagram point on the symbol and to write, if you like, the number that it is. Maybe color in something about how is it to be at this point right now. Maybe there's some color that would come in to infuse that space. Maybe you could just intuitively allow your pen to move and see what comes, what's going on at your own point right now. You might put words, but I encourage just drawing, free fall drawing. And then start to feel into the wing points either side. So I'm a one, I've got splodges by my one that express something of the energy of one in me at this moment. And maybe neither of the wing points are calling you, or maybe one is calling more than the other. So maybe see, draw something that shows how you're relating to either one or both of those points. Beautiful to do this with colours if you have colours to hand and you have a go at doing this yourself. And now let's think about these lines across, arrow lines across the Enneagram. And you might like to trace the arrow, or maybe it's um, what does it take for you to move from your home point to that arrow point? Um, is it easy to cross the circle with your pen, or maybe it's hard, or maybe you can do it in a flash? What's it like? Just allow your pen to make the movement to one of your arrow points. And allow yourself to land on that arrow point and see how it feels right now. Maybe in that feeling, there's something else you'd like to mark on the paper. When you're ready, take yourself back along the line on your Enneagram with your pen or just with the movement back to your home base point. Taking with you some of the qualities of your arrow point. When you're ready, try the other arrow point. What's it like to move across the circle to that? Does it feel easy to make that journey with the pen? What happens when you land on that point? Breathe into it. Again, marking something on the paper perhaps that expresses what's the quality of that point that it's bringing you right now. And when you're ready, moving back to your home base point. And taking a moment to take in the Enneagram that you've just drawn as your immediate encounter here and now with the symbol, the live encounter. And maybe you like to put a mark on this symbol as to if you were at one point right now, where might it be? Would it be on one of the joining lines of the circle? Would it be one on the arrow? Would you be somewhere on one of the arrow lines? Which is the point that connects with your experience today on Saturday afternoon? Maybe there isn't one point, it's just all moving. I've stopped sharing for a minute because I thought it would be nice just to look around the group and ask how that was for you.
Would anyone like to share? What was your process? What emerged for you during the exercise? Any aha moments, resistances? How was it? I always find the symbol very self-revealing. So when we spend time with it, it teaches us things.
Mm.
So I certainly experienced that again in the exercise. So thank you.
Okay, continue then. So actually, I'd just like to move straight on to an image at the end. So here's an example of just playing with this. This was one that somebody did in the workshop who realized that she had a sense of becoming more harmonious actually in herself, that she kind of thought she'd become found a representation of a flower. Here's one I did for myself at one point. Again, it's lovely to do this with chalk. So just an explanation of this. So I'm an Enneagram 1 here, and I have loads of 9 energy, and some of my friends sometimes think I'm a 9. So here you see the 9 in the green, kind of really flowing and permutating things. When I go to 7, it's a lovely playful energy. It's yellow and sparky and, lights glow. And when I dive down into 4, and it feels like a dive from 1 to 4, it's a connection with emotions, which is different. So that's just a little example for you of kind of how you can play with this. So, back to the Enneagram symbol. So I think one of the fascinating things with, if we look at the Bagua and the Enneagram, is I don't think it's particularly helpful to start making many, many direct, analyses as such, but it is fascinating what emerges when you start to look. So I would say that 1 water is considered as the entry point. And it's fascinating that here we have, if you were just to overlay your Enneagram, 1 water is coming in that gap between 4 and 5. So this is like, I said this was the door to the theatre. This is the entry to the room. Water, the water element is linked to inception and conception. We're conceived in water, we're born in water. Water represents, is an element that's used in many traditions of well, the waters of Leith, the transitions between life and death, water used in ceremony to sanctify and bless. Water is, but ultimately, water represents in Taoism the journey through life. So the flow, the journey of life. So how interesting that we're at a 1 water year as well, this new beginning. And I think there is something about the gap between 4 and 5 that we perceive visually when we look at the Enneagram. So there we have it, this visual illusion of a gap between 4 and 5. And when people work on an Enneagram mat in a very spirit-led way, there is usually something about how this is perceived. Many different ways I've seen people perceive it, of things leaving and entering life. Um, Another interesting parallel is 9 fire, of course, because there is the 9 right at the top at the center. And again, that's so, sort of maps against the Enneagram, the 9 being the point of encompassing. Um, Urania Pies sometimes says 9s are not the most gentle on the Enneagram, they're the most powerful. They appear gentle, they are the most powerful potentially. And having that harmonious, balanced view of the whole that 9 can bring. So that's an interesting parallel. Um, So the direct correlations, I think you have to sort of feel into and work with if this is something that interests you. Um, there are many. I'm just giving you a little flavour there. Wanting to go on to what Gurdjieff said about the Enneagram, which relates to the Bagua as well, a symbol of perpetual motion. The philosopher's stone of the alchemists, unity in multiplicity. So again, in the Bagua, we have that it's a representation of the systemic structure, the deeper structure of life. And we understand the Enneagram in that way, as well as applying it to personality. 9 points, so 9 qualities that are capable of defining all that is. And the notion that the Enneagram makes books and libraries unnecessary, you'll be familiar with this. Everything can be included and read in the Enneagram. And in the same way, the, the, the Bagua is the representative of the 5 elements and all that is in the Chinese Daoist philosophy. And then he said, and this gets quoted a lot, that somebody might be alone in the desert and trace the Enneagram in the sand, and in it read the eternal laws of the universe. We also hear that phrase as you could, two people could meet in the desert and draw an Enneagram in the sand and use it to understand practical problems they might be facing. You know, where might the best grazing be found? How might a fallout between neighboring tribes be resolved by looking at this Enneagram symbol? A.G.E. Blake wrote an amazing book called The Intelligent Enneagram, and he referred to this and he said, again, symbols are more than codifications of profound and ancient understanding. They are, in their essence, starting points for action in the moment. So here we have again, as Ingrid spoke to right at the start, about coming with presence and attention and what will emerge. Symbols are about the creative work that can unfold in us. I love this sentence. Without this action, symbols become part of enculturation, a contribution to sleep. So if we come to the Enneagram as just a flat, fixed thing with loads of text and, all very helpful and interesting, ones are like this, threes are like that, we're kind of missing something really important. But what if we keep coming back to the symbol? Keep reading, all that stuff is great, but come back to the symbol as something living and immediate that can speak to us. He goes on to say, this is still the words of A.G. Blake, that when Gurdjieff spoke of people meeting and drawing enneagrams in sand, it was a reference to the sand painting traditions. And he wrote, what's important is the sense of an ongoing movement of insight in which everything is constantly reevaluated. What you also have there is the idea of how sand paintings, and I think this is really important, and it is a point that Blake makes here, that the in traditional cultures, people would draw symbols in the sand that were a part of a healing process. And this is what's pictured here is somebody sitting on the drawing as part of their healing and becoming whole. And very interesting, the Enneagram is an invitation to exploring ways in which we can discover more of ourselves and become more whole and healthy and vibrant as living beings and more conscious. And this is a healing. It's almost like you can meet the Enneagram symbol for the purpose of a healing practice, if you like. And here's another one of a child sitting after the shaman has drawn her healing mandala, and she's sitting there experiencing that. And you can experiment. I'd love to suggest that people experiment with drawing their own enneagrams in the sand or wherever. Ingrid and I were chatting right at the start, and you were saying you do this, Ingrid. Playing with it, building enneagrams, drawing the enneagrams, seeing what emerges.
Yeah, just to add to that, Helen, I cannot recommend highly enough spending time on the symbol. The symbol teaches itself, and if you go and sit on your Enneagram point and look around you, look where you are, look at the wings, look at the lines, look at the lines you have to cross to get to the points of integration and learning and healing and disintegration. And walk the symbol, dance on the symbol, sit in the middle of the symbol. Some of the most important things I've learned about the Enneagram have come from spending time on it. I cannot at all recommend highly enough spending time on that thing. Whether
Yeah.
you've drawn it or, you know, people buy Enneagram carpets, it's very easy to find an Enneagram, someone who can print an Enneagram for you on a big piece of cloth. Find a printer, say, do you print on big tablecloths? And send them a high-res image of the symbol as you would like it. Find one that you like. Have your own carpet printed and see what you discover when you spend time on the symbol.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's something about this immediate engagement with it, which I think is really different and which and I would say treat if you print it, treat it with respect as well. Treat it like a sacred object. Don't put your chair on it and stomp across it without thinking, which can
Yeah,
sometimes happen when we use mats in corporate settings, and it makes me very uncomfortable. So I would say treat it with respect. If you can make your own, that's even better. I made my own, and I learned all sorts of things, such as the different lengths of the lines and that there was a much longer journey for a one to go to four or seven than it was, say, from a three to go to a nine. How interesting is that, you know?
and yeah, not wearing shoes when you walk over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All those things. Um, I wonder if this is a good moment for a breakout group where we invite you to work in twos or threes and talk about what it is like for you, either from the exercise that we just did, or if you've had experiences of working directly on the mat in other ways. Could we do that, Ingrid, do you think, at this point?
Sure. Can we make it 10 minutes, Helen, and then we'll have 20 minutes odd to close off and do Q&A?
Okay.
Okay, going to do a 10-minute breakout room. I'm going to recreate the previous room so you can just carry on from where you left off. What is it like to spend time with the symbol for you? And if you haven't, and it's a big surprise for you, that's also cool. Talk about that. Because maybe you've learnt it as an abstract symbol on the wall. You haven't been taught on the symbol. Hmm. Helen, how would you like to use these last 20 minutes?
Well, I'd love to hear if any feedback from a couple of people about where they are so far. We're kind of stepping into a huge, vast world of Taoism and different way of being and seeing things, which I couldn't possibly do justice to in a short space of time. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to give you a little flavour
Mm.
and wonder how that fed into your conversations.
And I'm wondering if there's anyone here has a path with Daoism, the I Ching, or Tai Chi, or Daoism as a path. If these resonances are landing for you, so don't feel like you have to have that to ask a question or share, but please go ahead. Simone, you are unmuted, so you're like a sitting duck for being targeted for a question.
I'll take it. I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you, Helen. I'm personally a big fan of the Tao and the I Ching, and I use it very much in my life to navigate challenges and the human potential. Um, I think I had more of a question, if I could ask, is I've never seen the Bagua before, which is new to me.
Mm.
And the simple block that you shared with us with the 9 blocks,
Mm.
when you're tracing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that almost creates like a symbol of almost like a dragonfly sort of
It does.
symbol. And I was just wondering if like there's anything behind the symbol itself, similar to the Enneagram, where the symbol itself creates a navigational system, if that
Yeah.
what's behind that kind of symbol. Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right that it's a navigational symbol and it's there. You can, so this is, so that journey from each point, 1, 2, 3, 4, creates this diagonal line and then back to one. So it's that another infinity movement, just as we see represented in the figures of the three figures that make up the Enneagram symbol. Um, yeah, it is about navigation. It is about change, and it's also gives us information about what's going on in terms of life flow beyond us. So, in the Taoist astrology, one of these 9 qualities is given you as a bit like your Ennea point. You get a key quality according to the year you were born. So, I was born in a 3 wood year. So that's the core character quality I bring. And then there are a couple of other numbers you would be given that relate to your inner life. And you can actually use that to say, well, what's going on for me in this particular year, for example. You can also use it for direction of movement. If you're moving house, they use it to say, is this a good year to move in certain geographic directions or to travel? So it has many literal navigational applications. I don't know if that answers your question, Simone.
It does, it does. And can I be selfish and ask a second question?
Sure.
Um, you have a 9 at the top, which is fire.
Yeah.
And then in the middle you have for this year, I think it said water in the middle
Yes.
for
So,
2025.
so I'll bring that. Shall I? I'll bring the slide up again to answer this question. So,
So just to ask the question is, is it usually the top block that is the element of the year? Because I know we're in a fire horse, so
yeah, this is partly why I wanted to introduce this because we are in a fire horse year, but we're also in a 1 water year. And why that is the 12 animals operate in their own system, which is part of the whole. So, from a Taoist astrology point of view, you're not ever working with just one thing. It's a bit like if you know Western astrology, you don't just look at where your sun falls, you're looking at your moon and your other planets and so on. And it's similar to that. So, the 12 animals cycle through the 5 elements, and that gives you a 60-year cycle. So, once in 60 years, you'll have a fire horse, another year, you'll have a water horse. So, it cycles through.
okay.
So that's going on at the same time as this movement of 9 universal qualities cycling through the years. It's quite complex, isn't it? But it's fascinating. And the other thing, if you there's a you hear a lot of reference to sort of conventional numerology, which is also saying that it's a 1 year, but it's not always coinciding with the Taoist one, which led me to look it up, which because normally I don't pay that correlation much attention. And I discovered that in conventional numerology, they also cycle through the 9 years, except that numerology does it in an ascending sequence, and the Daoism does it in a descending sequence. So we had two, we went through 9, 9, 8, 7, 5, 6, 4, 3, 2 in 25, 1 in 2026, and we'll be in 9 in 2027. So the two systems are going in opposite directions and meeting at 1, which is the beginning of a cycle. So, I mean, just very fascinating. Something that we were just talking about, Ingrid and I, while you were in the breakout groups, was about using mats. And so I thought I would actually just show you. So it's fantastic when you make your own, which is something I did. So here's uh, I don't know if you can see it on the camera.
Yeah.
So this was made with wool felt, and the wool was to represent the earth. The orange was really just so it could be seen. I didn't put any numbers on it because having no numbers means that the symbol can be worked with in many different ways, and I can place the numbers and according to the work we're doing, and it gradually has the energy of many people who've worked and experiences with it. And then long before I made that, I made this beautiful, again with a group of us made it. It's a bagua mat. Maybe you get a sense of the power of having. So here's that bagua with some trigrams on it.
And do you work on that? Do you stand on the
Absolutely.
trigram?
Yeah, you can sit
Oh,
on the
but
trigram.
in the I Ching, it's always two trigrams together. So do you have an I Ching mat? Or do you put one foot on each
So,
symbol?
so the I Ching has these same 8 trigrams, but it combines, so
Yeah,
each book of the I Ching has 2 trigrams. It's called a
yes,
hexad, where it
yes,
combines two, and there's 8 of them. It gives us 64
yes,
chapters, but it's all these core
yes,
9 energies, which
yes.
are the story.
So if you get a trigram, could you put like one foot on each trigram in um your
Oh, you mean yes, if you were doing the I Ching, absolutely.
yes.
Well, you would sit on one and then the other, I think, and say what's the
Okay. One and
story
then the other.
of how these 2 energies blend.
So the top one and then the bottom one.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. Um, I'm having this sense this is Enneagram one-ish of not being able to do justice to this. And I think it's
Oh,
to do with the sort of complexity of the material and this wish to communicate something about things not being fixed, but always in movement and flow. And that's what this movement through the years is showing us here.
yeah, thank you. And I guess that's a helpful thing for all of us to just zoom back and say, this is a glimpse into a whole world, the same way as when we first encounter the Enneagram symbol, we don't know what we don't know. And I
Yeah.
guess that's the communication here as well. So Helen, when I hear you say that, I'm hearing you say, if you're going to take away one thing, it's about movement and flow and dynamism, and don't see the symbol as static. Would you
Yeah.
say that's kind of the essential message you want us to walk away having integrated into our being, not just as an idea?
Absolutely. And it's about coming to it with that three-centered openness, open, body, heart, head. It's so easy to come to the Enneagram with your head because so much is written and printed and so on. And I would say that your own intelligence as you encounter it
Mm.
immediately as a living being is to really own your authority and own your potential to access this wisdom because you don't need teachers necessarily to mediate it. I think that's the whole point, that it's there for you and is open to you. It's open to all of us. And I learn it, and I'm sure Ingrid, you say the same thing. It's every time learning something different.
Yeah. It teaches us itself. And I've had experiences where I've been in a process with somebody, like someone's facilitating an expressive movement class, and I'm doing the whole thing on the mat. And when we come to the closing sharing, there are people sharing exactly what I discovered on that mat.
Yeah.
The synchronicities start becoming more and more dense and coherent and clear when you work with the symbol. So I don't know whether maybe we can have a little closing practice where we experience and visualize ourselves between our two wings. What does it mean to have those particular qualities on either side as stabilizing supports, as the essential qualities of both of these two types?
Ingrid,
Right there.
yeah, as we go into that, I've got a little piece about the Tao, just a few lines that I could read and to go
Yes.
into that. And Yeah, this idea that we're moving between the two all the time. We're moving on. We're not stuck in this one point. It's all there to play with. And maybe we're moving into the spaces as well and not the lines. Hey.
Yes. And also the sense that with the energy of the two, we can move along the lines. Like, what would it mean for me as a seven to move to one with the energy of 6 and 8? What would it mean to move
Nice.
to five with the energy of 6 and 8 and around the hexad? If you're an inner triangle type, what does it mean to flow around the triangle in either direction? These are the kinds of things that you can do when you're on the symbol. So let's first hear, and then
Okay.
maybe that's a practice you can take away, is to try it. Yeah, Helen.
So here's a little poem about the Tao. And if I read this and then we go into the meditation, and Ingrid, you'll tell us when to step out of it, I hope. The Tao, all of heaven and earth, things known and unknown, issue from the One. Light and dark separate their names and live in their mother's realm. The Tao cannot be defined by motion or form and has no end. There is no measure, no quantity, and no one true name. Myriad nature abides the law and exists together. All life exists only because of its neighbor. The things inherent to this universe live because of interaction. There is no separation within the one or of the one. This is the Tao.
Thank you. So maybe as a short closing practice, to experience, visualize, imagine yourself on your type point on the Enneagram carpet, and really take yourself there, embody and inhabit the present moment in yourself with your breath and your awareness, your gut and your body. And if you are at that point, what lines, movements, and qualities are available to you? So, being at the point where you are, if you look down both of your lines and have a sense of the energetic qualities and power and gifts, the virtues and the brilliance down each of those lines, gathering that towards you and seeing with the energies of your wings, the gifts of your main type, what is available to you from there. So you could walk in either direction around the circle. You could walk down one of your lines, and you could continue to walk either around the inner triangle or around the hexad in either direction. So where you are on your point, just visualize, pretend, imagine, and inhabit that sense of the possibilities available to you and the energies that are possible to easily aggregate within your being. To feel the ground beneath your feet, your connectedness to the essence quality, and then to sense the impulse of today. Or where is the invitation? Where am I being called? Which line, which direction? What am I being invited to explore in my experience? Just have a sense and use your inner intelligences to feel that sense of where is the next unfolding, where is the next dynamism for me to explore. Have a sense of the orientation of your heart. Bring your awareness to the heart. This is not about deciding where you should go, but bringing your awareness to your heart, feeling your instinct, your gut, sensing your intuitive intelligence, connecting with your inner authority and knowing. And in that state of presence and self-connection, sensing which flow is inviting you right now. And Helen, I don't know if you want to add a line, a poem, a metaphor, an image to what would it be like to flow with that, to move with that. You're on mute, Helen.
If we would take water as the element that allows things to flow, and is the element most of all that allows to transform into different forms of ice and snow and cloud and back to water. So this potential of flow and surprising transformation.
And what is it like for you when you surrender to what is emergent within you without resisting what is arising, welcoming what is here for you now? What form of water may you be right now? And what is the next form? Knowing that it's transient. Noticing the subtle movements inside. And as you become aware of this turning and this movement and this flow, it's a continual process of transformation. Invite you to slowly and gently bring yourself back to our shared field. You might want to run your fingertips, your thumb over your fingertips, just to become aware of being grounded in the body in the here and now, and coming back into relationship together, and bringing with you anything that you discovered during the session inside, that you're bringing that with you into our relatedness. And with that, let's come together and gather and know that we are sitting in a circle together, learning and growing together in community, supporting each other, validating each other, acknowledging and affirming that we are all in this together. No matter what state the world is in, we're here at this time in history, and we've got each other, and just the deepest sense of human solidarity as we leave this space to go and bring love and healing and reassurance to every space that we go back to. So on that, I'd like to bring our session to a gentle close and hand over back to you, Helen. I just want to say thank you so much for being here today and for giving us a glimpse into this vast wisdom. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure. And I did just want to say, yes, somebody mentioned various books. Roaming Free Within Inside the Cage was in the chat, somebody suggested earlier. And there's a recent book on the Enneagram, which is the Enneagram Symbol, which is by Jennifer Joss. Some of these books, they do address Taoism, but I feel that they often take bits of it and they miss this kind of overall container of the extraordinariness of the Tao and how it relates to consciousness and the many, many facets of it, so that it can be oversimplified. But if anyone's intrigued, I love this book. This is a top read of mine at the moment, The Tao of Complexity.
Mm.
Making sense and making waves in turbulent times. I'll put that in the chat.
You-
Possible
And
ways forward.
and for total beginners, who's the best person to read and where do we start?
Or something like Alan Watts' famous book on the Tao, The Watercourse Way. That's been out for a long time. But there's a
Yeah.
book called The Path, which is very well known at the moment. My copy must be downstairs. But The Path is a good start.
Who's that written by?
I'll have to check it and put it
Oh,
in.
okay.
It's a journalist, though, who's come to Taoism and therefore brings a journalist's kind of capacity to make things simple and clear. So I really like his work. And I
So
very
if
much,
we Google the path plus Daoism, we're likely to find it.
yeah, or I will send it to you. And this book on the I Ching I really, really like, and it puts things very clearly and is a lovely way into working with the I Ching. And this is by Roger Green.
Great, thanks. There's also a wonderful site that I use for readings. It's called ichingonline.net. And
Okay.
there's a little box where you can put a question in, and you get quite an evocative and mysterious message back that invites you to go into an intuitive reflection. It doesn't give you a simple answer by any means. So that's quite a cool site, ichingonline.net.
Okay, thank you, Ingrid. So thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here. And yeah, if you'd like to take it a little bit further and deeper sometime, maybe at some future session, we could do that.
Wonderful. And Helen, please can you put your, like if people want to connect with you, I don't know if you do individual coaching or if they want to collaborate with you or invite you to co-run a workshop or whatever, can you please put
So
some
I just put
contact
my
details?
email in the chat for you. Yeah,
Okay, is it there already?
I've just done that. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a
Okay.
self-pres, so I always forget about promoting myself.
Yeah. We all need those little reminders from each other. I'm self-praise blind. So thank you for that.
Oh, and it's been a pleasure. I've heard a lot about your group from some of your other regular members, but weekends are often very busy for me. So sadly, I don't usually have the chance to join. So
Yeah, same with yours and Enneagram Alive, but we all intersect and yeah, it's great.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I wish everyone a beautiful rest of the weekend and that you find spaces of gentleness and holding
Mm.
that are very far away from the news for periods of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of love.
Yeah. And to you. Thanks, Ingrid.
Ciao, ciao. Bye bye.